So, we've all gotten pretty used to AI that can answer our questions or, create some wild images. But the next big leap, it's not just about getting better answers. It's about actually getting things done. We're talking about a huge shift in what AI is, moving it from a passive tool you have to guide every step of the way to an active, autonomous agent. Basically, we're building our first true digital teammates.
Let's kick things off with this idea, because it's really the key to everything. Context window curation. Okay, that sounds super technical, I know, but think of the context window as the AI's short-term memory, what it's thinking about right now. And curation, that means the AI is actively, intelligently deciding what's important to keep in that memory to solve the problem at hand. It's not just listening, it's thinking. We're going to unpack exactly what that means.
For the longest time, AI has really been all about one thing: prediction. Predicting the next word in a sentence, predicting what a picture should look like. But we're now at this incredible turning point, moving way beyond AI that just gives us information to AI that actually takes action. And trust me, this is the next big leap.
And this slide really nails the difference. On one hand, you have predictive AI. Think of a basic chatbot, right? You ask a question, you get an answer. That's it. It's totally passive. It needs you to tell it every single thing to do. But on the other hand, we have agentic AI. This is a whole different ballgame. It's autonomous, you can give it a big picture goal like, hey, plan the team's upcoming business trip, and it can actually break that down, create a multi-step plan, and start executing it without you having to hold its hand. It's the difference between having an encyclopedia and having a project coordinator.
So here's our game plan. We've talked about the big leap. Next, we're going to dissect an AI agent to see what makes it tick. Then we'll look at how it actually thinks, we'll follow its career path, and finally, we'll get into the really tricky part. How do you manage a workforce that's digital?
All right, let's start putting together our digital teammate. And honestly, the best way to get this isn't to think about lines of code. It's way more helpful to think of an agent like a person, with distinct parts that work together. A brain, some hands, and a nervous system to connect it all. First things first, you have the model. This is the brain. It's the large language model at the core, the part that does all the real thinking. It takes your goal, digests all the information it has, weighs its options, and comes up with a plan of attack. It's the strategist. Of course, a brain with no way to interact with the world is pretty useless, right? And that's where the tools come in. These are the agent's hands. Tools are what connect the brain's plans to the real world. They let the agent actually do things. Search the web, send an email, pull a sales report from a database, you name it. And the part that ties it all together? That's the orchestration layer. Think of it as the nervous system. This is the critical piece that manages the whole show. It runs the main loop, handles the agent's memory, and makes sure the brain and the hands are perfectly in sync. It's the conductor of this entire symphony. So, we have a brain, hands, and a nervous system. But how do they all work together to actually get something done? Well, they operate in this continuous cycle, a kind of thinking loop that lets the agent tackle problems step by step.
And that process really breaks down into 5 key stages. First, it gets its mission from you. Then it scans the scene, pulling in all the relevant context. Next, the brain thinks through a plan. Fourth, the hands take action using a tool. And finally, and this is so important, it observes the result of that action and decides what to do next. It just keeps going through that loop. Think, act, observe, over and over again until the job is done.
Okay, let's make this real. Imagine you ask, "Where's my order?" A simple chatbot might just say, "I don't know." But an agent thinks, it creates a plan. Step 1, I need to use a tool to identify this order in our internal database. Step 2, I'll take that tracking number and use another tool, the Shippers API, to track the package. And step 3, I will report the exact location back to the user. It's using different tools for each step, all orchestrated together to give you a complete, useful answer.
Now here's a really cool way to think about this. Not all agents are created equal. Just like people in a company, they have different levels of skill and autonomy. So we can actually imagine a career ladder for them, starting as a total newbie and working their way up to a team lead.
So at the very bottom, the absolute entry-level position, we have level 0.
A level 0 agent is basically a brain in a jar. It's just a pure language model, totally disconnected from the live, breathing world. It can tell you the entire history of baseball from its training data, no problem. But ask it who won last night's game, not a clue. It has knowledge, but zero real-time awareness.
Okay, time for the first promotion. Let's see what happens when our agent gets to level 1.
At this level, our agent becomes the intern. And what's the big change?
It gets hands. It gets tools. So now, when you ask about last night's game, its brain knows, hey, I don't have this info, and it can use its new hands, a search tool, to go find the score. It can finally connect its powerful brain to the real world.
All right, climbing the ladder to level 2. This is where things start to get pretty strategic.
We can call this one the junior associate. A level 2 agent isn't just reacting anymore, it's creating multi-step plans. So if you ask it something tricky like, find a good coffee shop halfway between my office and my friend's house, it knows what to do. It thinks, okay, first, I'll use a map tool to find the exact halfway point. Then I'll use a search tool to look for coffee shops right in that specific area. It's planning ahead.
And that brings us to the top of our ladder for now, level 3. This is where the agent stops being just a worker and becomes a manager.
This is the team lead, and it's a total game changer. Instead of one agent trying to do everything, you have a manager agent that delegates tasks to a whole team of specialists. You could give it a massive goal like, launch our new product. It would then assign jobs to a market research agent, a social media agent, and a web developer agent. This is how you start to automate entire business workflows.
So this all sounds amazing, right? We've got these super capable digital teammates ready to go, but actually deploying them in a real company safely and effectively? Well, that brings us to the huge new challenge of managing this digital workforce.
And there are really 3 things you absolutely have to get right. First is Agent Ops, this whole new field dedicated to testing, measuring, and debugging these AIs, which can be pretty unpredictable. Second, security. You have to put up guardrails to make sure they don't go rogue and do something they shouldn't. And third, identity and governance. Just like a human employee, each agent needs its own ID, its own permissions, so you can control exactly what it has access to.
And this is absolutely where things are headed. You see it in advanced systems like Google's Co-Scientist. There, a main agent acts like a research director. It figures out a problem, and then it literally spawns a whole team of specialized agents to go and run experiments and analyze data. The future isn't about one super smart agent. It's about building and managing an entire digital team.
So, when you boil it all down, we're left with this one fundamental question. As we make this shift from passive AI to autonomous agents, what are we really doing here? Are we just building a fancier, more sophisticated tool, or are we actually building a completely new kind of teammate? The answer to that is going to define the future of how we all work.